Hey, do you like watching movies? How about watching movies and making up ridiculous sequels to them in your own head? If you answered yes to either of those questions, The Motion Picture is a podcast you should definitely dip your ears into. Not in like a weird literal way. You can't actually dip your ears into audio. That'd be really... Anyway, join me, Matt Hopkins, and my pal Michael Trinko as we pitch each other the most demented movie sequels our malfunctioning brains can dish out. We've done sequels to Waterworld, Twister, Love Actually, and even took Coyote Ugly to space twice. You can find The Motion Picture wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic.
The Gorge is brought to you by Patreon. That's patreon.com/thegorge, where for just $5 a month, you gain access to not one, but two podcasts. A monthly commentary track called Take Out, where Ben and I watch, so far it's been mostly bad things and make fun of it. And I've enjoyed every second of it, but eventually we will also watch, like, actually good things. But most recently, we watched X-Arm, the very bad Crunchyroll anime, and I loved every second of it, even though it is extremely bad Crunchyroll anime. I highly recommend you go check that out. You also get That's Hell You're Walking Into, a podcast where mostly we just farm nodes, y'all. We farm nodes in Fate Grand Order, and in the process, I answer questions Ben might have about the Nasuverse and its extended universe. If you think that sounds like a good time, and personally I do, then once again, head on over to patreon.com/thegorge. We appreciate every cent. Thanks.
We appreciate support from Holy Star 64, Neon Hellcat, Patrick Perez, Roddy 1/2, Hasso Toby 27, Saturn, Alice Marks, Shia, Otzi, Magus, Aquamancer, Jack Toops, Liam Lane, and that other one dude.
This list is actually getting really long. That's nice.
It is. I'm
Thank all of
happy
you.
for that.
It makes me very happy. We're going to have to move it to a different part of the podcast at some point, though.
I can't wait until this is a 15-minute segment.
We just end every episode just reading names while I play video games in the background. Yeah. But that being said, Ben, what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we are going back and taking a look at an old classic.
Okay.
We are looking at the Jak and Daxter trilogy for the PS2, PS3, and PS4.
Yeah, they re-released it on everything, thank God. I did not play the PS4 re-release, but I would like to at some point. I did not make time out of my schedule to play the PS4 re-release. I still have the discs from the PS2. I would like to try it on my PS. I guess I could play it on my PS5 at this point, and just see what that game looks like, not running on a CRT. Mm-hmm. And made to be running on a good screen. So, this is just kind of a random one, but I actually, before Ben even knew me, like, this was one of my, like, favorite game series. Have I ever told you the story about the Jak 2 demo disc?
No, I don't think so.
I was such a big Jak and Daxter fan, and so enthusiastic about Jak 2 that I don't have it anymore. It sucks. I actually bought the E3 demo for Jak 2 off eBay and was able to play it before it was even out. So
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. I was mad, and it was like my first thing I ever bought off the internet. Now that I think about it, was the E3 20.
It wouldn't have been 20. It would have been like 2000.
Yeah, I was thinking. I think it was like 2004. E3 04. Jak 2 demo disc. I bought that, and I played the living shit out of it until the game came out. And yeah, I love these games. I am fascinated by the Jak games for many reasons. They're probably the only franchise that has ever correctly done a a more grimdark sequel to a lighthearted children's property. Correctly. They literally, I think they're the only ones who have ever nailed it, now that I think about it. And it's extremely interesting to look at Uncharted and The Last of Us and still see the DNA of the Jak series, even in something like The Last of Us, which I know is bizarre to say, but as a portfolio, I think what were we talking about the other day, where you could clearly see the delineation between old games and current games in a series?
Supergiant's line of work.
Supergiant's games. The same thing here. It's not as obvious as Supergiant, which has an extremely consistent aesthetic trappings, but it's still there, and I think this is the very interesting way to center this discussion, and I was thinking about this a lot, is this notion that Naughty Dog has a very interesting preoccupation with these very lush, outdoor, interesting spaces. It is the most obvious in the first Jak and Daxter game, but it comes back really hardcore in Jak 3. And but I mean, and it's very funny to say, but it's Crash Bandicoot to Jak and Daxter to Uncharted to The Last of Us. These games have, if you line them up, they have such similar color palettes, and I am so interested in that from strictly an artistic standpoint. I am not a massive fan of The Last of Us. We've said that a lot on this podcast. I do think it is extremely aesthetically sound. And
I do think it definitely has one of the best apocalypses I've ever seen in a setting.
Fantastic apocalypse, absolutely gorgeous. It has such a good kind of weight in its world, I guess is the way to describe it, and though the color palettes they use, especially every Naughty Dog game, if you've never noticed it, go back and play the first game in every single one of their franchises, and the first area, and it's really cool how obvious it is when you really see it. They have such a preoccupation with gold and green as just an overall tone to all of their games, even as our creative directors and stuff have changed, and longtime artists have come and gone from Naughty Dog. They still have a fixation on gold and green. All of their games are very heavily centered around those colors, and anytime their games break from that color palette, so Ellie and the snow and that kind of thing, it's an important thing. So Jak 2 is especially such a huge deviation from that, and then eventually even Jak 2 takes you to golden green spaces when you go outside of the city,
right,
that I think it's so interesting.
They specifically the golden green for sure, and then they have a very specific attachment to lush, overgrown ruins.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's very funny because, for Crash, it was just an aesthetic trapping that allowed for very interesting platforming, right? Mm-hmm. And then they carried that to Jak and Daxter. The same idea in the first game is aesthetic trappings for interesting platformings. You set it on an island, on an island chain, and so everything is kind of tropical and lived in, and there's suggestions of an old civilization, and you get to climb all over those, and there's vines and overgrowth and trees, and it's very pretty. And then they were like, well, what if we just did that again, but for Uncharted?
Yeah.
What if we just did that exact same thing again for Uncharted? And then The Last of Us goes like, well, what if we did the idea of an overgrown civilization, but it's our civilization? So you have this beautiful through line of a studio's portfolio, and it's so, I mean, it's weird to say there are any shared aesthetics between Crash Bandicoot and The Last of Us, but they're there.
But you can still feel it. You can still see that progress, that line of progression from them.
Yeah, and it's very cool to me. And I think Jak and Dax, like the Jak series, is probably, like, to me, it is such a great boiling down of, like, game design in the early 2000s in a good way. Like, it's a distillation of how, like, game design in the early 2000s worked, of what if we just threw everything into one video game?
Yeah, the Jak Trilogy is this it was one of my favorite eras of platforming.
Oh, yeah.
In which it's just, we have an idea, we're going to put that idea in our game. We're going to fit it somewhere in there. They aren't constrained by one type of control design, you know?
Yeah.
You have, we'll get into more detail, but you have vehicles, and you have mini games with their own set of controls. You have modes of transportation that come with a scaling system. You have turret sections and mazes and all sorts of just like different aspects that require their own unique control scheme to get through them.
Yeah. And it's very, a lot of games at that time were doing that, where it's just, we're going to throw every kind of mode in that we can think of. But I think the Jak series probably did it the best, because it is that, you know, again, despite my quibbles with the studio these days, Naughty Dog has always been good at everything. And so they have such a well-tuned sense of game design that they can make a driving sections and a skateboarding section in Jak 2 and mazes and platforming and all these different races, all kinds of stuff. And all of it handles extremely well. All of it just flows into each other. Turret sections always suck, no matter what. What are you gonna do? That was in vogue at the time, and I'm really glad that for the most part turret sections have gone the way of the dodo, as they should. But the ones in Jak and Daxter were not too egregious compared to other series at the time. And so it's just like, yeah, that's what I mean when I say that it's kind of the distillation of an entire game design ethos at the time, was let's just throw it all in and see what sticks. And in the Jak series case, it's like everything stuck. So they kept everything from every previous game.
Yeah.
And then they just bolted more shit onto it until you get the perfect distillation of that idea in Jak 3, the best game in the series.
Mm-hmm.
By a mile.
And you don't see, like, platformers like this anymore.
I know, it's such a shame.
I feel like as games have gotten more complex and more, like, busy and complicated and more of a prestige, is that you're steering away from stuff like this.
Yeah.
Which is why I was very happy to learn that Insomniac is still doing Ratchet and Clank games.
Insomniac is still making Ratchet and Clank games. And I mean, platformers are still getting made, but like everything else kind of in like society as a whole, we're getting more hyper specialized as an entire society. Mm-hmm. It feels really weird to reference like John Boyce in a Jak and Daxter video, but I'm gonna do it. John Boyce once said that we've gotten so hyper specialized that you could take like the lady who works at enterprise rental cars and take her to any other like rental car company, and she wouldn't be able to work the computer because the systems are so different.
Right.
And we've gotten to that point where even in like video games, like platforming video games are more specialized than ever to just be about platforming. They don't do like the 600 different things that Jak 2 was doing. I forgot that Jak 2, I mean, like, I didn't forget, but I guess it should be said that Jak 2 also has like good gun mechanics. Like shooting the guns in Jak 2 and 3 are good and interesting. So there's tons of mechanics going on in this, and I think modern platformers, even though it's nice to see platformers making a return, I don't think modern platformers are doing the like wealth of things that early 2000 platformers were doing. And it's just kind of it's an extension of this whole idea of doing one thing extremely well instead of many things just okay.
Yeah, and sometimes that's fine. If
right.
I kind of want a grab bag of mechanics in my video game.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's an acceptable thing, and I miss the era of, you know, Banjo-Kazooie and Jak and Daxter and those kinds of just like big collectible worlds with tons of stuff to do.
Means I'm just gonna show up at Naughty Dog's front door one day and be like, "Where's Jak 4? Do it." I mean, it would probably involve Neil Druckmann in some way, so like maybe not. But you know, I still want it. Like in my soul, I still kind of want it because I think their gameplay sensibilities have improved over the years, and I would like to see a platforming game made to be like that finely tuned. I think that'd be very interesting. Plus, you know, cartoony aesthetics with fucking ray tracing just look cool. They just look cool. It's fine.
I wanna see Daxter's fur texture.
I do. I want to see Daxter's fur texture, and I just want I just want the dune buggies to come back. I'd very much like the Jak 3 dune buggies to come back. It's probably some of my favorite driving in any video game ever, but that's for a second.
Yeah. So I think the best way we can do this is just kind of go down the trilogy.
Sure.
Just kind of talk about each game in order. So, starting with the original Jak and Daxter, my first PS2 game.
My first PS2 game as well, alongside Eco and Devil May Cry. You never stop liking the games that you played when you were 13. That's the rule to take away from this. It's a very weird medley, but like it's like artsy Japanese game, the very first character action game, and one of the better platformers ever made. Like, yeah, cool. That's a pretty good assortment.
Yeah. So the original Jak and Daxter is probably the one that I've actually played the least, just because, like you said, 2 and 3 are just better.
Oh, 2 and 3 are just leagues better. I did 100% it when I was a kid, because I wanted to see the secret ending. So God, remember being young and having the time and the energy to do psychotic things like collect everything in a collect-a-thon video game?
Right? I miss that.
I don't have that kind of energy now. Thinking of that makes me exhausted. I've never platted a game in my life, and the older I get, the less likely I am to plat things. At this point, it's just never gonna happen.
And there's an inherent downside to that, is because you went and did that, and because I played a ton of it, like, that game is so formative in my memory that, like, it's been well over, like, a decade since I even played Jak 1, and I still remember certain bits from it.
Oh, God. Actually, it's very funny. When my other bestest friend, the other Sara in my life, moved, we had a big party before she moved, like, to help her pack her car, and then that night we hung out at her parents' house and drank and ate pizza, and we played Jak and Daxter. We played the first Jak and Daxter for like 3 hours, so it was very funny to go back to that. And you know, the other Sarah even gave me the controller and was like, well, this is the game you and I used to sit around and play all the time, so you get to play it. And I'm like, yay! So we just drank beer and played Jak and Daxter because it's the only one we had. And it was fun. It was great. That game still plays super well. If none of you have actually picked that game up recently, it's such a good platformer still.
There's this great sense of weight, and this carries through to all three of them, but there's this great sense of weight and momentum in all of Jak's movements.
Yes. The insanely long roll jump.
Oh, I love that jump.
The roll jump is so good. The problem is that it is so much faster that you get the one problem with the roll jump, and this is a stupid problem, is that it's so much faster that you end up roll jumping everywhere, and that means sometimes you will just roll jump right off into a death.
Yeah, because it's got a set distance.
It's got a set distance. You can't stop it. You go exactly as far as that roll jump says you're going, and sometimes you aren't paying attention. You just roll jump straight into oblivion. It's like, oh, whoops.
But it was back in the days when you had your lunging punch, you had your spin attack, your double jump, your staples of platform and gameplay.
Yep.
And adding Daxter onto Jak's shoulder,
I know,
is this great touch because again it adds so much of that like squash and stretch to all of his animations because you have this little critter with him that is also, like, scrabbling to stay on his shoulder while you're doing all this platforming.
Yeah, well, one of the principles of animation is something called follow-through, and that is the idea that an external piece of the character's body, so a cape or their hair or something like that, will move after the main character body has completed movement. So like you jump and the cape keeps kind of fluttering a couple frames after the character has landed, you know? Daxter is just an extremely elaborate follow-through prop that makes... Because, like, you're swinging yourself across the screen, and there's this little... And he's bright orange, contrasted against Jak's, blue outfit, so, of course, he pops really well. And you're swinging yourself around the screen, and this long rat body is being flung around with you, and it's great animation, and it looks really funny, which is vital.
Little details that progress through all three of those games that I just love. The one that stands out to me is when you do your spin attack, and every so often Daxter will continue spinning around Jak's neck.
Yeah. It's so good. One of the best details, and they carried this forward to Jak 2, and I love it, but they only do it once, is there are so many... You get the power cell, and they do like a little celebration dance. There are so many of those.
There are.
There's so many of those, and it's great. And they carry that gag forward to Jak 2, where they try to do the celebration dance, and this tower they're on collapses.
Yes.
And it's such... They don't ever do it ever again. They only use that gag once, which is, of course, how you're supposed to do it. It's set up and payoff across 2 games, and I love it.
There is also a great bit in Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, where after you do an extensive grind rail section, and you get whatever object you were going to get, Clank starts doing Daxter's celebration dance.
Yes.
And Ratchet just is like, what are you doing?
I have that little jingle that plays every time you get one, like permanently scorched into my cerebral cortex. Like I hear it in the back of my brain, just and it's surreal how much time I spent on that game. It might be a little embarrassing, but I don't care. I loved that game. I love its whole aesthetic. That's another thing I was thinking of that is like a carried across of Naughty Dog is, for at least from Jak and Daxter and onward, is a very kind of interesting fixation on like worn leather as a world building aspect, or at least a character building aspect, because it's such a everybody's clothes in every single Naughty Dog game are super lived in. Nobody ever looks very like prim and put together. And you know, that's another neat kind of carrying thing across all of them. You really get the sense that, like, starting with this game especially, they were just like, we know what we think looks good, and we're gonna use it. I vibed with it.
They wear tunics and leather pilot goggles and everything. They live in huts, wooden slat huts, and
it's like a very cool place to live. It's always one of those like very high on the list like video game places you've always wanted to visit. You know,
they're
right by the water.
They have propeller-based hover vehicles.
Cool.
And the character designs are so good.
Oh, they're stellar.
Jack, Samos, Kira, Daxter's designs are all just absolutely perfect.
They're perfect, yeah, no. And unlike all the little villagers, the sculptor and Jack's uncle, a character that you should not think about too hard if you're paying attention to the timeline of these games. You're like, hey, but what about this guy? Don't worry about it.
He's gone.
He's gone. Don't think about him, okay? It's fine.
It is funny how Jack 1 becomes super irrelevant by the time Jack 2 comes out.
Oh, sure.
Just by nature of how the plot works, but like, it makes me laugh to think about how like there's really only 4 characters that persist through every single game.
Oh yeah, no. Well, Jack 2 actually gives us a returning cast across, 3 whole games if you're counting Jack X, which you should because it's great. We're not talking about it here, but Jack X is great. But yeah, like none of the characters, even like the villains in Jack, I remember thinking before 2 came out, thinking like, oh, it'd be cool if the villains came back because they had cool designs, like Saturday morning cartoon villain designs. I remember thinking it'd be cool if they came back. Nope. Don't worry about it. They're never coming back. They are for real, dead-zo.
They're the
they
4
do not
sages,
matter.
The 4 sages
don't
in
matter.
Jack 1 don't matter. They
don't matter.
There is no follow through with them at all.
Shouldn't there be like 4 sages even in the future? Don't worry about it.
No, don't think about it. It's okay.
Shut
it's
up.
Fine.
It's fine. Again, what about Jack's uncle? Shut up is the answer to that question. It's fine.
The 4 sages always reminded me back in the day. It reminded me of how like the relevance of Samos compared to everyone else is basically like how King Kai is the only relevant Kai, even though there are 4 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Don't worry about it. Like, yes, we know they exist, but they're not important characters, so stop asking.
But no, I do like, even before the huge tone and genre shift of Jack 2 and 3, like, Jack 1 just as a Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64-esque platformer, like the evolutionary step of those kinds of, not quite open world, but like zones that are big enough to explore and fit a lot of different, like, platforming or obstacle course style objectives in them.
Yeah, it's very cool and fun, and when you're a kid and you've gone from Mario 64 or whatever to the PlayStation 2 and Jack and Daxter is so big and open, it definitely feels even more like you're really on a big adventure, which is of course what they were aiming for. And it all still holds up so well. All of the visual design, all of the gameplay trappings. I do always, my favorite Jack and Daxter story before we move on to 2 is, do you know how the eggs came about, right? The collectible tokens that...
Yeah, but aren't their model is just
they're reskin gems from Spyro the Dragon.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so Naughty Dog had other plans. Apparently they had like way bigger plans for Jak and Daxter and just ran out of time. Which is why that game ends so abruptly. If you've ever played that game, it just kind of ends like really hardcore, like hard.
The thing they set out to do doesn't get solved.
Yeah.
They set out to turn Daxter back to normal. And
they don't fix Daxter, no. They do not fix Daxter. And it's like, if you get all 100 power cells, you open the big thing, and everybody's like, and then the game just hard cut is over. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how the game ends. So, obviously, they ran out of time. They were just like, shit, we're out of time, we don't know what to do. So, they had a good working relationship with Insomniac. So, they called Insomniac, and they were like, can we borrow the gems from Spyro the Dragon to be collectibles in our 3D platformer? And Insomniac was like, yeah, we'll send you the files over. And they got files, they reskinned them to be the precursor orbs, and the rest is history. And that is why, and I know I've told this story on this podcast, I'm positive of it, but I just can't remember. That is why there's a billboard of Ratchet and Clank in Haven City.
Not only that, but Ratchet and Clank are the you can unlock. I don't know if it's unlockable or not, but if it's, you can get them as target dummies in Haven City later in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And it's because it's like a thank you to Insomniac for basically saving their ass at the very last minute.
I love that because it like, that is one of my favorite things ever, is how many times they crossed over. Like, Ratchet's an unlockable character in Jak X, and Jak is an unlockable character in Ratchet Deadlocked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they work. I think those two studios are. I mean, I don't know in 2020, but I know back in the day, I think those studios were basically next door to each other, if not like up and down the street from each other, which was why they worked together so closely. I don't think that's true anymore. I do think Naughty Dog moved in the last 10 years to a bigger... I know Insomniac moved in the last 10 years to a bigger studio, so they're probably not close to each other anymore. But that's how it used to be. They could actually just, like, literally walk down the street and say, like, hey, we need some help. Now that both of them got that Sony money. They both have big Sony bucks, and that means you can have a big fancy Sony bucks building with lots of space and people.
Hey, Naughty Dog, make a Wolverine game.
Oh, that would be cool.
That would be really cool, actually.
That actually would be pretty sick. Yeah. It's weird that Insomniac is working on, like, two things. They're working on Ratchet and Clank, and they're working on Spider-Man right now. Naughty Dog never seems to have to work on a second project, even though they are decisively, like, they have been owned by Sony way longer than Insomniac. Insomniac was only recently bought by Sony. I know everybody's like, wait, no. But no, Insomniac was independent until extremely recently. 2 years ago? Last year? 2019.
It was a few years ago, but it was still it was recent enough that we were both just like, wait, what? You didn't already do that?
No, they have only been recent. So it's funny that Naughty Dog only ever seems to have to work on the one project at a time. So, strange that they can always find time to crunch their employees still, but that is neither here nor there for now.
The point is, Jak 1 is a really fucking good platformer game with tons of stuff to do in it, and it's a relic of a bygone era that I wish would come back, because, boy, I fucking love collectible platformers.
I do. I love a good collectathon if it's put together well, Banjo-Tooie.
I like collectathons that have witty pairing of characters. One of them is usually bigger than the other, and the small one has to ride the big one in some capacity.
Oh yeah.
Big fan of that.
We're a big fan of that, and to me it is mind-blowing that Jak and Daxter, that they did have cut content, because to me that game feels pretty complete, except for the ending, of course. And it's like, oh, you actually had way more planned and you just ran out of time. That's wild to me. Which leads beautifully into Jak 2, a game that is super obviously like, we had a lot of ideas, and this time, by God, we are implementing every single one of them.
So, the big thing to talk about with Jak 2 is we've got to figure it out, which is how the hell did they survive the shift to a T rating?
I don't know. There is some black magic going on there to not make it the most insufferable thing in the world. And I think that the answer is that, except for the first part, the I'm gonna kill Praxis bit, where Jak is super pissed off, the game is still really fucking funny.
There's three things, there's actually two things, really, that I think really lend itself to the fact that Jak 2 was able to survive this. One is Daxter. Daxter exists as a character and is there to bounce around and be dumb and drink sewer water by accident.
Right, yeah.
Every like cutscene that gets a little serious. Even that first cutscene where Daxter finally finds Jak and is like, he's like, say something for once in your life.
Yeah, no, it's such a good line.
Which I think always thought was funny, that like Jak actually is canonically mute and it's not just like a weird like player insert thing.
Yeah, no, no, he's like, and like the kid doesn't talk. I think it's like the little baby Jak, who is an adorable character design. He doesn't talk, and that's very interesting to me. But like they keep the bit up until he finally does, and it's like it all works.
It does, and I think the other thing that helps us out a lot is, like we talked about Jak 1, which is that the gameplay is all basically the same.
The gameplay is all functionally the same, except they added new minigame shit. They added the hoverboard, which kicks ass. They added the driving, which also kicks ass if you love to suffer, which I do. But the general means of getting around is all exactly the same, except they added a gun to the equation. And the guns are perfectly functionally well-made platforming third-person adventure guns. Like they always hit. There isn't a lot of fiddling with aiming and stuff like that. And they do goofy fun things too. They get even better in 3, but again, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. But it's just like, you have your double jump, you have your spin attack and your punch attack. And
you have your roll jump.
Yeah, those all persist throughout, the trilogy. And I think that lends itself really well to making this game still feel like it's part of the same series. One of the things that turned a lot of people off to say something like Ratchet Deadlocked, which also was kind of like Insomniac's trying to make Ratchet and Clank a little bit more gritty and violent, is that you lose a lot of the platforming in Deadlocked. Like Clank isn't there, so you don't have the jetpack or the helicopter pack. There's not as much mechanics and puzzle solving. It's all gunplay, right?
Right.
Whereas Jak 2 and 3 still have, and Jak 2 especially, still have like a lot of platforming and
tons
exploring.
Of platforming. Yeah, there's still like lots of platforming challenges just all over the place. They're not in the city, like in the hub city itself. They're not there. That's for the Grand Theft Auto element. But there's a lot of good and interesting platforming mechanics that are thrown around, and they all feel pretty, they're platforming challenges in an open world-ish, finger quotes, ish game. So it's like, why are there all these platforms in the sewer system? Don't worry about it.
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it too. It's a PS2 game, but even that still doesn't feel like too egregious. Like it could still, the city is ostensibly like thousands of years old, so it could just have, just shit built on top of shit, built on top of shit kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, that kind of vibes. And I think the other thing is that this is a weird one. The reason Ratchet and Clank can't work as like an edgy game series where the Jak series can. It's just the fact that like the Jak characters still have like people faces. They're not like animals. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, you're right. I totally agree with that.
Like, they still have people faces, so they can still... They're not too cartoony. I mean, they have big cartoony faces and giant elf ears. They are pretty fucking cartoony. But they're still coded as, like, people-y shaped. And so they can have more people-y, edgy emotions, like desire for revenge and stuff like that. And Jak is not, like, insufferably edgy. Like, he's angrier, yeah, but he's still goofy. Like, he still cracks jokes and does dumb shit with Daxter, and they're basically just, like, dumb dude bro friends now, especially that he can talk.
Yeah,
he's just a dumb asshole. He's, like, I think he's, like, 19 or something in this game.
Yeah, well, all that happened is that he went from being, like, you know, it's, what, 3-year time skip between
like
1 and 2?
It's 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, all he did was go from like a wide-eyed, innocent 14-year-old freshman to like a senior.
Yeah, it's fine. So he's just like a dumb asshole dude bro now, and his like honestly, letting Jak talk is the best idea they ever had, because now they have this really fun back and forth between him and Daxter, and they can just like bicker and be stupid friends together. And you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it makes sense that these two have been hanging out for their whole lives. Because they're just dumb idiot friends.
I always think about, there's 2 moments that always stand out to me in terms of Jak not living up to the edgy, you know, try-hard protagonist that, like, he looks at, like, at first glance.
Sure.
Which is the first scene when he first tries to find the Resistance, and he's trying to find Torn.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to be all tough with the group, and he's like, I'm looking for Torn. Are you Torn?
Yeah. Is that who you are? Yeah, no.
Is that you? And the other one...
I don't know what I'm doing, man.
The other one is when you first reunite with Kira, and it's before she realizes who Jak is.
Right.
Because they frame that cutscene really well, because Daxter doesn't talk in the first cutscene,
right?
And Jak doesn't, and she doesn't know what Jak sounds like.
Yeah, because he's canonically never spoken.
Yeah. But you get that point where she's like, I need someone to test out my jet board, and both Jak and Daxter look at each other and mouth the words jet board. Yeah.
Because they're still dumb, stupid, asshole teenagers who think the idea of a skateboard with jets attached to it probably kicks ass. And they're right. Like, no, it owns. It's so, like, they're dumb and they're goofy. And Jak, like I said, still tries to do the victory dance with Daxter. Like, it's not just Daxter doing it.
Yeah.
Like, Jak actively also does the thing, and then they just get cut off by the building collapsing. Mm-hmm. And there's just a whole bunch of, like, little things like that of just them being, like, friends, and you really get the sense that they are, like, actual friends who like each other and enjoy hanging out and being stupid together, and all of that is great. And it's that kind of stuff, and the fact that, you know... It never takes itself too seriously without being, well, that happened. You know? It never really makes fun of itself for being like an edgy reboot. Maybe because at the time it was still kind of new to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, we hadn't hit that
Bomberman Act Zero was still like 3 or 4 years out at that point. And so, you know, it has a sense of humor about it without being insincere, I guess is the best way to put it. So it still allows itself like a few moments of like actual sincerity and depth, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It strikes a perfect balance of being ostensibly a cartoon.
Sure.
But also having like a lot of heart in it too.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes itself seriously, and it writes, you know, it handles its writing and all of its characters really well. All the new characters are good. You know, it's extremely well constructed and always feels super good to play. It takes everything that Jak and Daxter did and does it better. It's also hard as balls sometimes.
There are missions that are just like
so hard
in Jak 2.
No, that game is crazy. I remember when it came out, reviews were like, "Yeah, this game is really good, but it's really hard."
And the reason it's so hard is not because like the challenges themselves are like any particularly difficult. Mm-hmm. It's checkpoint starvation.
Oh God, yeah, exactly.
Just like its whole thing. The ones I always think about are the street race, and the dock fight.
The escaping from the water slums one?
Yes.
Oh God, I remember crying at that one. I was like 14 or 15, and I think it was the first time in my entire life a video game had me so frustrated that I cried because I just couldn't beat it. I mean, I must have attempted that one. So like, if you're, for some reason, if you're listening to this episode and you've never played the Jak and Daxter games, one, they're on PlayStation 4, go get them. But two, there's a part where there's a part of the city that is in like a bay, and so all of the buildings are connected. By the way, Haven City has a really cool design.
It does. It's super cool.
It's a very cool, like, futuristic diesel punk, kind of. Very gritty, but it still has has a lot of the same, like, aesthetic ideas that were in the first game of being kind of bolted together and ramshackle, but it's like a whole fucking city instead.
It really does look like, the natural evolution of ramshackle huts and whatnot on the water. If you take that and evolve it 100 years, you'd get that.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's like they're called the water slums for a reason. It's a bunch of buildings all connected by like bridges and docks, and you have to, like, from the deepest part of these slums, you have to escape, and all of these guards are like converging on this one area. And if you die, you start from the beginning every single time. Fuck you. There is no checkpoint in the middle of this section. You checkpoint as soon as you're out.
By the way, this is Jak 2. So you have, 8 pips of health?
You have 8 pips of health.
I think it's either 6 or 8.
It's a very small number. And there are no health drops in that whole sequence. And if you try to get out through water, like if you think, because you can swim, of course. You think you're so fucking smart, you're just going to jump off the dock and swim underneath the whole thing? No, fuck you. There are also drones in the water that insta-kill you if you try to do that.
Yep.
So have fun. And if you accidentally fall off the water because there are no invisible walls that keep you on that and you just kind of get shoved off sometimes, you have a very teeny tiny window to get back onto the docks before those drones come and own you. It is ruthless, and I hated it. And I just remember crying so hard because I just wanted to get past this one section and finish this game. And I couldn't. I took 20 tries at least, maybe more.
And beyond that, for me at least, you had the races and the street race.
The street race with Errol, the second one,
is a nightmare.
Is brutal.
It's a goddamn nightmare. At least, okay, so the one that gave me trouble, the race that gave me trouble is the second one, because there's the 3 you do to win the Grand Prix, right?
Right.
And the second one is one where Jak has stormed off, and because he's mad at Kira for something.
I don't know.
Oh, because she's interested in Errol.
Yeah, and I think it's also that she's, being like, why are you so mad? Like, I don't know, he spent 3 years in a gulag. Why are you so mad? Mm-hmm.
So he storms off, and Daxter has to do the race himself.
Right.
Which is funny because Daxter is 2 feet tall and he's trying to ride a person-sized motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly.
But that race is really, really hard.
That race is extremely hard. That course is really hard. But But
and I think I've told the story before, but I managed to do it because it had gotten to a point where I was stuck on it for so long that eventually I had just brought the game to a friend's house to just kind of play and see if because it's one of those things where like, hey, we're going to hang out this weekend. Okay, well, can I bring my copy of Jak 2? Because I really, really want to beat this part and I need to practice.
Yeah, exactly.
So while we're hanging out and talking, I stopped paying attention.
That's it.
And realize that I've been in first for 2 laps easily.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it now. And it was that easy. Yeah, no. Sometimes it's just a matter of you're thinking about it too hard. I need you to come and talk to me while I play this section so that I don't think too hard about it and don't stress about it. And then you just glide right to victory. No, I totally understand.
Now, if we could do that for the second arrow race, that would be really great because that one sucks.
So the thing about the second arrow race is, one, he is super fast. His bike is insanely fast, but like, 2, the bikes, they're hover bikes. They are incredibly floaty, and banking sharp turns without flying into a wall is basically impossible. And it's nothing but sharp turns. The whole second street race against Errol is nothing but incredibly sharp turns through narrow city streets. It sucks.
So if you haven't played it, what the street race is you have to race your rival and hit these circles that are your checkpoints to like make sure you're going on the course, you know.
Right.
But instead of doing something like, we're gonna section off this part of the city with invisible walls so you can't go out of bounds or anything, right? Mm-hmm. No, you have full access to the map. You can go anywhere you want. Mm-hmm. And you have to find the checkpoints.
Yes.
And Errol knows where all the checkpoints are.
Because he's a computer game character.
And not only that, but they don't even have the courtesy of despawning the pedestrians and civilian vehicles.
Yeah. So you have to avoid people, and they're flying car. So like the hovercraft in this game, you can press a button and swap instantly between high and low. High is you're in the air, and you're in the air with all the other vehicles in the game, of which there are a lot, which is bizarre. And low, you're at street level, and that's pedestrian level. So no matter which level you're at, you're gonna hit somebody if you're not steering well. So you still have to like weave in and out of traffic and take incredibly sharp turns and try to find where the fuck you're going, all while racing somebody else. Have fun.
It is, and again, no checkpoints. No
checkpoints. So if you fuck up, you're back at the beginning.
And yeah, there's no like arrow to like point you like above you to point like, okay, we'll go in this direction.
So
no, it's just
mean.
It's a dot on your mini map.
It's so mean.
And they also don't like do the thing where it's like, okay, well, here's this one, and the next one is over here.
Right.
Just one at a time. Fuck you.
Fuck you. How dare you memorize this map? Eventually, that's what I had to do.
Yeah,
Was just memorize the route, you know? It's grueling, but it's fun. The driving in Jak 2 is bizarrely fun for being a total nightmare to steer, because eventually, I mean, if you play the game enough, you acquire, like a memorization of the whole city map, which is not massive. I mean, it's a PS2 game, for God's sake. So you kind of acquire like a knowledge of the city map, and then once you do that, you can really just start like flying places, just getting from point A to point B so fast, and it feels really good. Because the motorcycles are way faster than the cars.
They took a lot from obviously Grand Theft Auto. Like,
absolutely,
the influence is like immediate.
Yeah, it's extremely obvious.
When you see the mini-map, the car hijacking, and the way the game is structured, which is, doing jobs for different groups. to advance the story. And so because you're going to the same places every so often, you start to memorize the layout of them naturally. And it works out really well, and the map is nice, and when you're not in a hurry, it lends itself really well to navigating through it. There are little tricks and stuff you can do to get around pedestrians and not crash your car into stuff, and
Right.
Avoid the Crimson Guard, which, by the way, great name for your squad of armored thugs.
Yeah, no, good name, good.
Krimzon Guard.
Yeah, of course.
Raw.
Listen, it's still the early 2000s. All right, we still have to be a little bit edgy spelling, otherwise, the world would implode.
Jak 2's characters have great names for things.
Great names. Across the board.
Torn, Tess, Crew,
Ashlyn, which is way too much of a normal name, but it's spelled weird, so don't worry about it.
Baron Praxis.
Great. Errol, great name.
Yeah.
Excellent character design across the board. Everybody looks good, except Kira, whose character model took a huge downgrade in 2, and I know you noticed it. She got real fish-eyed real hard.
Because they didn't give her a new outfit or anything.
Yeah, she didn't get a new outfit, but her face model is completely different.
Yeah.
And bad. Very bad. Very, very bad. I do not recommend, because Daxter also got a face remodel to look more cute. His character model in the first game is more Crash Bandicoot adjacent, where he has a very square jaw and that kind of expressive face. Daxter's redesign in 2 and in 2 onward is to be more cute, which I get. He's definitely cuter, but boy, Kira's face change in 2 is bad. It's very bad. Her eyes she's very fish-eyed in a bad way. So yeah, it's very interesting. But everybody else's character designs looks great.
I was always a big fan of Crew's dangly legs.
His little bug legs just kind of wobbling beneath him. It's really funny. Solid character design. All the guns are good. I like every gun in Jak 2.
Me too.
It's a smart mix of your rocket launcher, your rifle, your shotgun, and your machine gun. You swap between them very easily using the D-pad, and it all feels very cohesive.
Speaking of cool animations, I love the it's
a morph gun. Yeah, it's so cool.
Actually, changing and Jak switches his hand positions when it swaps out. It affects the way he attacks too.
Yep.
I love that with the minigun, your spin attack is a lot mechanically it's the same, but his animation is a lot slower. Because he has to swing this heavy gun around.
Yeah. I think whoever came up with the idea of being able to shoot while you spin attack should get a medal.
Oh, that's so cool.
I just think they should get a medal and a bonus and their face on a plaque somewhere at the office, because that is so much fun to do. And in Jak 3 it gets better, so we'll talk about that in just a second, I promise. I keep alluding to how much I love Jak 3. Spoilers, I really love Jak 3 a lot. But otherwise, I think Jak 2 is great. I think it's a lot of people's favorite in the series. They're wrong, but it's I think it has slightly better in terms of, again, this is a Saturday morning cartoon, but I do think it has slightly better writing than Jak 3, so I will give it that. And there's just enough drama and just enough character intrigue and stuff like that to be on the level of a really good Saturday morning cartoon, one that is that can be enjoyed by adults as well. It's a little silly sometimes, but
It has a character named Pecker.
it has a character named Pecker, and it's really funny. That whole intro is really funny. And yeah, fuck. Jak 2, these games are great. But Jak 3 is better.
Jak 3 is definitely better.
Because Jak 3 gives us dune buggies.
Jak 3, just like Jak 2, took everything that was good about Jak 1 and just iterated on it and expanded on it. Jak 3 just takes... It gives you 2 entire open worlds to explore.
Yes,
and slaps a giant desert between them.
Yeah, this huge explorable desert map that has it has driving challenges and platforming challenges and dungeons and random encounters, which is really cool. You can just be out in there and then suddenly a sandstorm will hit out of nowhere and you have to deal with that, and they're the cool raiders that you have to fight while you're out there, and yeah, no, there's Jak 3 came out kind of toward the end of the PS2's life cycle, and like we saw with things like God of War 3 and Final Fantasy 12, toward the end of the PlayStation 2's life cycle, developers were just doing fucking magic with this extremely underpowered console. By all accounts, the PS2 of that generation, by all accounts, the PS2 is the weakest of the 3 consoles. And yet, people were doing just the craziest shit with their video games at that point because they had such an intense understanding of the architecture and they just knew what they were capable of. So, Jak 3 has Spargus. It has the desert. It has the entire Haven City map from the second game just stapled onto it. And then there are multiple dungeon areas in that desert. Some are good, some are not so good. The driving section with Sig is what I'm thinking of. You know that part?
One's not as good.
You know that part where you gotta kill shit in a cave with Sig in that one type of dune buggy? I wanted to die. That whole... it's not hard. Like, the game is significantly less difficult than Jak 2. I wanted to die in that sequence for a completely different reason. It's because it was a big, unwieldy dune buggy in a small cave space. And it's bad. It's bad to do. It's bad to play. Nobody likes it. I do not recommend. But the rest of it's great.
The rest
Holy
of it
shit.
is so good. There's so much going on in Jak 3. It's like, oh, you have a gun that turns into 4 guns? Well, now each of those modes has 3 alternate fires.
Yes. We finally get the reflector bullets on the... So this is what I was talking about, like the person who invented shooting while spinning should win a medal. Because in Jak 3, you can shoot while spin, and you can shoot the reflector bullets on the rifle mode while spinning. So you just kind of turn into this spinning ball of bullet death. And I love it. It's so much fun. You don't even have to think about it at that point. It just becomes the instant win button. You just start spinning and there's bullets flying through the whole area. I remember one point, there's a part in that game where you have to guide like a minecart down a track and hit bullets or hit targets as it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can cheese that whole section with the reflector bullets because I think they do have some degree of like intelligence to them, like within the game's brain. They go automatically toward targets.
Yeah, they'll bounce off walls and aim towards an enemy.
Right, like you don't have to do any actual aiming. The gun, the way it's programmed in the video game just does that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to ask a 12-year-old playing Jak 3 to accurately aim a ricochet shot. That's insanity.
Right.
So you can just cheese that whole sequence by spamming ricochet shots and just hitting everything without trying. And so you're just escorting this minecart without having to think, and it's great.
It's I love it. I love the minigun that just turns into homing needles.
Yes.
That one's great. I love the blaster that you charge up and just aim at the ground to send out like a shockwave that like gives you hit stun.
It gives you hit stun and is a great crowd clearer. Yeah, no, that's the best alternate fire mode for the shotgun. Also, these guns don't use universal ammo, which I am actually a big fan of.
I am too.
Because it means that you never really run out of ammo. You know, it also helps to kind of encourage you to change things up, which I think is smart. Like, you have to alternate between the different gun modes because you are so limited on the kind of ammo you've been given. And so it's just a good way to kind of strong arm players into playing with all of the systems available to them, which I'm always in favor of. You should try to force people to interact with as much of your video game as possible.
Yeah,
in
but
a good way.
Not in a way that like feels limiting.
Right.
But in a way that just feels natural.
Right.
On that note, I love the sound that it makes when you pick up ammo.
Yeah, it's a good clicky sound. A lot of good sound effects in that series.
That chunky reloading sound with like this like charging up sound at the very end of it is so nice.
All of the menu sounds in those games, all three games, are like A+. The gear menu is fantastic. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, and then they just, they do, again, it's crazy. Like, Jag 3 is so much of, you just feel like they got finished with Jak 3, and it was like Uncharted just sprung fully formed from their brains after Jak 3, because it's even more of a crazy adventure game.
And you can kind of see it because, like, Jak has the bandana.
He's got the bandana, and he's got all the belts, yeah. He cuts his hair.
Yeah, his design in Jak 3 is very evocative of what would eventually become the Henley-wearing explorer type.
Absolutely. Jak's design in Jak 3 is absolutely the best of all. No, I'm wrong. Jak X exists.
He's got that coat in Jak X.
He's got that coat. He's got the shorter hair. It looks really cool. But Jak 3 is second best. I just think it looks good. The long hair looks like shit. Sorry.
I'm a big fan of like the bandage wrapping and the kind of torn outfit.
He's got like the half skirt thing. I don't know, the butt cape thing. It looks cool.
Super good.
Looks super good. The whole game, all the designs in that game, all the designs in Jak the people who get new designs, I should say, because like Torn and Ashland, they all get new designs, and Kira still doesn't get a new design. Womp womp. It's been 3 games now, but all the new character designs are really good. The fucking Wheatley dude,
Vin,
the one who kills the king, Vin, right? What's his name?
Count Viger, you mean?
Yeah, him. His design's
Viger.
great. He's great. A total asshole, but his design is great.
Yeah.
The whole game has really good design aesthetics.
Speaking of collectibles, I just remembered this, and I wanted to talk about this with Jak 2, but it fits with Jak 3 as well. I'm a huge fan of the way this game kind of keeps the legacy of the magic of Jak and Daxter.
Oh yeah.
Like integrated throughout it. One of my favorites is this sort of like the kind of melancholy way that like in Jak 1 precursor orbs are like coins. They're just everywhere, right?
Right.
Like you just kind of pick them up. They're like there's trails of them going around. Whereas in Jak 2 and 3 they're rare.
Yeah, they're rare collectibles. They have taken the place of power cells, which are just completely gone in Jak 2 and 3. And so they're super rare. It's like, oh yeah, this is like a bygone world. It's like the leftovers of what used to be. And so these super it's interesting because of the fact that this is the future of the Jak and Daxter world, and that makes sense because like old Roman coins and shit, they're not just going to be laying around all over the place. But I mean, back in the day they were. So like now they're very rare things, and they unlock special stuff, which I love.
Yeah, I love that too. I miss when collectibles unlocked like cheats and fun things
instead of being DLC.
But I even back as a kid, I always thought like that progression was like one of the best ways to kind of understated building lore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, the world is fading away and is being replaced with like this industrial like design, and the magic is going away.
Yeah, like eco isn't really a thing in the subsequent games,
Yeah, you find it's mostly dark eco. The other colors of eco are gone. There's green and dark, and then in Jak 3 you get light eco, but like you don't find those in pickups like you do with dark eco.
Right.
You have to seek out specific like vents in Jak 3 to refill your your light eco.
Yeah, I know, it's super interesting. It's very much like it feels like a logical progression into an industrialized world where like a lot of the natural world falls away, and what there is pretty limited, or it's a sandblasted desert.
Yeah. The lurkers, the enemies that you fought constantly in Jak 1 are now like an endangered species.
Yeah.
And have been forced into hiding over the years.
It's smart. It's nice, smart world building that never really like lingers too long on the melancholy, because again, Saturday morning cartoon tone we're going for here. But there's just enough to be interesting. This is the game actually that Amy Hennig came on board. This was the first game she wrote for Naughty Dog when she finally came on board at them. She's left by now. Amy Hennig no longer works at Naughty Dog now. Again, proof that Naughty Dog is no longer the company they used to be. But she wrote this one, and it has all the fun trappings of just like a really fun adventure story. It's not quite as dark as Jak 2. And I prefer it. I think a lot of other people prefer the second one's tone. But like Jak 3 is just so much fun, and it's so like sun-soaked, and the desert is such a blast to drive around in, and we can finally talk about the greatest plot twist in video games ever.
Okay, so we talked earlier about how Jak doesn't do the well that happened.
Right.
Where it sabotages its own sincerity.
Correct.
But Jak 3 has the best joke I have ever seen in a video game. Ever. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh my god.
There has never in existence been a line read as good as that one.
It is so, and it is one of the best like plot twists in any video game ever.
And I think about it constantly, and one of my favorite things about it is that like in Magic series like this, right?
Sure.
Everyone has their equivalent of oh my god, including Jak.
Yeah.
Jak and Daxter's is by the precursors.
Absolutely.
And because, there is no god.
Sure.
There's the precursors, or there's the gods, or whatever. The reveal that the precursors are Otzels is so good, it takes Jak out of his own universe.
It is. I mean, it is legitimately one of the funniest things I've ever seen in any video game ever. Because the build-up to it, the line read, the looks on everybody's faces, the timing on that joke, it is immaculate. It is so fucking funny. And it never stops being funny.
It's such a great moment because 3 games later, because like you said, remember the whole reason they start off in their adventure in the first game is to turn Daxter back to human.
That's the whole plan, is to fix Daxter.
Only to end up revealing that what happened to Daxter is a blessing.
It's a good thing. Daxter essentially got turned into a god. Oh man, it's so good.
And of course, the follow-up to Jack's "Oh my God" is, of course, the first thing that Daxter notices is that they get pants.
Yeah, which is, again, like, it's been a running joke the whole series that, Daxter was making jokes about pants in the first game. Mm-hmm. And I love it. That entire because they do mention, and it might have even been in the first game, but in one of the games they mention that the precursors were twisted by dark eco.
It's this perfect setup, and no one would expect it until you finally see it.
Oh no, nobody expected it back in the day. Some people got mad because they take themselves too seriously. Those people are fools. But it makes total sense. They're like, the precursors got twisted by dark eco. Well, Daxter fell into dark eco.
Yeah.
And he turned into an Otzel. So, it stands to reason. I love it. It's so good.
And it also helps that, even so, as they reveal very quickly, they're still the precursors, and they're still all-powerful beings.
Yeah, exactly. They can do anything. It's so... Oh, it owns. Oh, it's the best. That whole sequence is so good.
And speaking of, sabotaging moments, remember, that cutscene happens very shortly after Jack's real father dies.
Yeah. I think there's a single critique to be said for that, is that maybe you pace those two sequences a little bit further apart, guy. Literally, what happens is that Jack's real dad dies in his arms. They hop into a fast car, and we'll talk about those sequences.
I love me a good tube sequence.
They hop into a tube car, and they go after the bad guy, responsible for murdering Jack's dad. The literal next cutscene is the reveal about the precursors being Otzels. And it's there probably should have been another sequence between these two cutscenes, guys.
You may have needed a platforming segment where you're hopping around that void area.
Yeah, and maybe be man, that was my dad, and now he's dead. That sucks. You kind of because the whole game has been about Jack and Deimos talking. Yeah, being oh, this is his dad for sure. They lean on it super, super hard. It's really obvious from the word go who he is. And it's you probably should have let that scene breathe a little bit more, guys.
It is one of the most heart-wrenching scenes because, he's you need to find my son, because he has no idea.
Yeah, he has no idea.
The kid has gone back in time and is now here with him. And Jack realizes it, but Deimos doesn't. And,
he dies before he can say anything.
Yeah, and it's this great moment where, even Daxter doesn't show fear of leaping into the unknown. Mm-hmm. Because, man, his best friend just lost his dad. And the guy responsible needs to pay for it.
Yeah, it's maybe... maybe you put more time between those. Maybe.
Now, I could also argue that it's the most absolute perfect timing and pacing imaginable. Because the whiplash is so good.
The whiplash is very severe, for sure. I will give you that.
If you filled it with anything else, you would lose just the complete tonal whiplash of that moment. And it might lose some of its impact. But
also, those are very, very different scenes going on within like 20 minutes of each other.
It can go either way, and honestly, like, a part of me thinks it would not have been as memorable if it didn't have that just like complete annihilation.
Sure. Oh god.
Just
either way, fantastic.
Completely sucking the wind out of Jack's sails, like
out of everybody, because you're all just expecting like, oh shit, this is where the precursors are. Oh shit, and it's Otzels, little weasel dudes, orange weasel dudes. Yeah, okay. It's incredible. Oh god, Jak 3 owns.
Jack. And the other joke that I always think of in Jak 3, and it's just every fucking time I see this exact same joke in any form of media, it always cracks me up. It's the best. This isn't a game? Yeah, it's what this isn't a game, you know, and then they look at the camera every time.
Frankly, at the camera. Always funny. Always good.
It's my favorite. I love it.
It's great. No, it's great. It's good. It works especially well in this series. It's always kind of, always been a little bit funny, so it's like, yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, no, there's so much good shit in that game. There's so much good shit in that game. I love all the dungeons. I just love the design of everything. I like that they give you lizards to ride around town. That's fun.
Yeah, those are cool.
Lizard races suck ass though. They're not fun. They're not good.
No, those suck. But like just getting on board one and riding it around is cool.
They're fun to hop around on.
The jet board finally gets like a pulse attack, so you can actually like use it.
You can use it more, and it's even more useful and fun now. Thank God.
You get a cheat that lets you like go hyper fast in the desert on the jet board.
Yes.
Which is super cool.
It's just a blast. Tube races suck.
They do.
They do. Sorry, I cut you off.
The one thing I don't like about Jak 3
Can I try to guess it again?
Go ahead.
It's the fact that it ends on Jak kissing Ashlyn?
Yeah, that's weird.
It's so weird. Man, we really are just on the same wavelength about everything. But yeah.
Because like it's like the only obvious thing that's like, why did you write this? Like, why did you sideline Kira so hard in this game?
It is so, because like, for one, like, everybody who played Jak 2 thought Ashlyn and Torrin were a thing, right? Yeah. Like, everybody on planet Earth played that game. We're like, oh, they're like together.
Yeah, but like, even if you don't, like, if you played 1 and 2, it's like, Jak and Kira are like the thing.
They're like, this is like building. You play Jak 1 and they're like kind of flirty with each other. And like teen, puppy love. Teens.
He's got a crush on her.
He's got a crush on her.
I'm pretty sure Daxter makes fun of him for it.
Yeah, it's super obvious. And then in like Jak 2, it's kind of, things are a little dicey because he has had some problems and she's not terribly sensitive to them until the end. But it's like, okay, well, that's the arc. We start with puppy love. Things are a little bit rough in the middle, and then it ends and they work it out. They get together at the end of the game. That's how that works. I've seen movies. And like there really isn't any chemistry or like romantic interaction between Jak and Ashlyn, like at all. And I always thought she was like 5 or 6 years older than him, right? Like, she's like an adult woman, like the same age as Torn, who is an adult man. And Jak is like 19.
It's just this weird thing that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, very bizarre. Very, very strange decision. It confuses everybody.
Especially because, like, not even in Jak 3 do they have any chemistry. Like, you could almost argue, like, okay, well, in Jak 2 they don't have anything, but in Jak 3, like, they kind of have a bit of banter back and forth.
Kinda.
But they don't.
Yeah, no, they don't. Like, it's so... You know? Like,
it's such a weird decision.
it is a weird decision that they immediately backwalked in Jak X.
They rolled that back so hard.
They rolled that back super hard. Jak X is I would almost argue that Jak X solely exists to fix the pairings.
Yep.
Because Torrent and Ashlyn are implied to get together at the end of the game. They have, like, an actual thing going on between them. And, like, the game explicitly ends on Jak and Kira kissing. So, like, there is a part of me that thinks that, the only reason Jak X Combat Racing exists is to fix that thing. Like, that one problem.
Right.
They're like, we can't end the series on this insanely head-scratcher of an ending.
They were like, well, we've got to end our trilogy on, like, a big damn kiss, right? But they're like, well, Kira's not really in this game, though. Ashlyn is in this cutscene.
Ashlyn is here slightly more than Kira is, so I guess she gets the kiss? What you do, if you're not a coward, is you just end on the game of Daxter and Tess kissing.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You end the game with a Goofy Otzel kiss instead, because you've got a brain.
Which, by the way, I think tying the original plan of the game was to get Daxter back to human. I love that the precursor's solution to Tess and Daxter being incompatible is to just turn Tess into an Otzel.
And she's a cute little Otzel too, so it works out. It's great. It's perfect. And she's perfectly happy to be one. Are you kidding me? Like, it's perfect. So that's how you end the game. You ended on a Goofy Otzel kiss because your big plot twist of the game was a Goofy Otzel plot twist, you know? And, you know, later you do Jak X and fix things, I guess. No, always very strange to me too. Don't worry. I played that game when it first came out and was like, why?
I remember being on GameFAQs, the GameFAQs message boards, and people were like, why did that happen at the end of Jak 3?
It is so confounding because they really don't. I mean, they interact more in 3 than in 2, and definitely more than Kira in 3, who has like 1 cutscene, I think, maybe 2. Very strange decision. But that doesn't mean they have like chemistry.
Yeah, every time they interact, it's always like, hey, help me fight these things.
It's very professional. It's very like, we are work buddies and our job is shooting shit with our cool guns, you know? I don't know.
It's like every interaction is like, there's Ashlyn and there's like 100 guys trying to kill her.
Yeah, that's exactly it. By the way, I know we said we weren't talking about Jak X. I gotta say, I like all of the Jak X designs like a lot. Like, I think they're all really good. Kira finally got an outfit. Ashlyn's is so bad.
I don't even really remember hers that much.
It's not cool looking at all. And they changed her model to give her like really twiggy. I mean, she's always been like a sexy cartoon character. So she's mostly like hips and tits, you know? But like she had normal arms. And in Jak X, her arms are super, super twiggy. And it's really weird. And I just needed to point that out. Because
you're right.
You Googled it. Yeah, Google Ashlyn in Jak X if you're listening to this. And just go look at her model. And it's like, why are her arms they're tiny? It's very weird. Very odd. You know whose design is great, though, in that game?
Whose?
Rain's.
Yeah.
Rain's design is super good in that game. I mean, a lot of that stuff in that game is good. That game is so good. Why did the combat game have to have like an actual interesting plot? Like the kart racing game had like a plot that wasn't bad. It was like a fun little side story.
Yeah, I don't really remember too much about Jak X. I think I only really played through it once.
It's fun.
It's a pretty good Mario Kart.
Yeah.
I guess. But like, yeah, the fact that it had like this really intricate plot line with like betrayal and setup.
There's like betrayal and setups. They go to a whole new city. There's like politics going on in this city and racing shit, and it's like, I mean, that's all cool. This is very elaborate for your Mario Kart clone.
Yeah, Crash Team Racing didn't have that.
We never did get uncarted.
We never got Uncarded or The Fast of Us.
Fuck. Well, now, you gotta say, though, The Fast of Us can only happen if we get 3 Last of Us games.
That's true. We need to get The Last of Us Part 3.
Exactly, and then we can start talking about The Fast of Us. I want The Fast of Us to be a horse racing game, because that game does have pretty good horse mechanics. God, I want a kart game where you're racing horses instead. You're shooting. That'd actually be really fun. You're like shooting characters with shotguns on the back of like horseback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be a blast.
I want to see like a fucking like horse explode like a Mario Kart thing does.
Or like the lightning bolts in Mario Kart. It turns Joel and his horse to be very tiny.
But kind of like going off of what I said earlier, like speaking of Jak X, the one thing that did bother me about that game is precursor orbs are now in the thousands.
Shh, don't worry about it. It's a racing game. Shut up.
Yeah,
maybe they all maybe all of the precursor orbs got exported to the Jak X city whose name is totally escaping me right now.
I mean, they must have, because even as a kid, I was like, wait a minute. The whole point is that like they're really, really hard to find, but now I'm getting like 10,000 of them for winning this race.
Look, I told you not to worry about Jack's uncle. Also, don't worry about the precursor orbs in Jak X. It's fine.
I did like that that Daxter keeps his pants in Jak X.
He does keep his pants. And yeah, you know, I just all of these games are really good. It's been fun to talk about them again. It's like, oh right, I really like Jak and Daxter.
These games, like even just thinking about them now, like in hindsight, like the presentation, the voice acting, the character animation, the cutscenes, all those are so like well done. Speaking of Daxter's animations, I love that he has different stances for when you're in dark or light Jak mode.
I know he's got like a little aggressive stance when you're in dark Jak mode. I love it. Mm-hmm. It's cute.
And then if you stand still in light Jak, he has his hands clasped together.
Yeah, he's very zen. It's adorable. I will say, not a fan of the light Jak design.
Really?
I don't like the weird tentacle wings. It doesn't vibe with like zen to me.
The problem I have with light Jak is that it is a puzzle solver.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Not really like a combat mode, you know.
Right. It heals you though. You can. I think the whole reason like it's useful in combat at all is that it heals you. So if you're down on health, you can just pop light Jak and you're good. But light eco is a rare resource.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that you have to, like I said, you have to find the vents to activate it. I do like the hand clap to stop time.
Very cool.
Very
Always
fun.
cool. Like, looks great. It's one of those like very situational puzzle things. You don't really get to use it all the time, but when you do get to use it, it looks cool. It's really fun. Yeah, that whole puzzle, like the puzzling area, that big temple where you do all the cool light Jak puzzles and shit. I love that whole area. It has such a Zelda vibe to it.
It really does.
It's fun. It looks great. There's such good what is the chick's name? The priestess chick. Why am I going totally blank on her? Seer? Something
Seem.
like that? Seem. That's it. I really like her whole look. I wish she was utilized a little bit better in Jak 3. She really doesn't do anything ultimately. But I think her whole design is really strong. And yeah, there's a lot of just cool shit in that game. And 2 braces.
and unfortunately.
And unfortunately 2 braces. Can't always be perfect. The 2 braces are the water slums of Jak 3.
Yeah, because they're really, really long, and you have to, like, kind of do them perfectly.
You have to do them perfectly. They don't have any, as far as I can recall, they don't have any checkpointing. So if you fuck up, you just go back to the beginning. And they are very fast. And if you screw up at all, it's like I said, it's back to the beginning. And there's 3 of them, which is like 3 too many.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't like that. This game does have a really great speedrun, though. They did a Jak 3 speedrun at AGDQ 2019, like the last one that was in person, I think. And it's a fucking blast. It's so much fun. It's so broken.
Those are underutilized, I think, as far as like speedruns go. Like they're on the level of like a Zelda game. Mm-hmm. But like Jak doesn't really have like as much popularity as like Zelda does.
Sure.
But like it's still just a fucking blast to watch them just go through everything.
Yes, because it is a very busted speedrun. There's a lot of like making dune buggies fly and stuff like that, and skipping whole areas just whole hog, and like very precise jumps into unloaded sections and things like that. So go look that up. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, no, it's fun to talk about these games because, like I said, it just reminds me, like, oh yeah, I really like these games.
They're just such solid platformers with so much with so much heart and like care and like little touches that really make it like that make it feel like special. You know?
Yeah, it is very special. It's a game that the last 2 especially. They are games that are made out of a lot of different parts that should not click together as well as they do. But every part of, especially of Jak 2 and 3, just it all vibes very well. You transition very seamlessly from like skateboarding sequences to racing sequences to platforming and dungeoning and puzzle solving and back again. And it all flows very well. And just all functions very well. It is very much that same, it's an old PS2 game, but it's still made out of the same like tier of quality that modern Naughty Dog games are made out of. So yeah, I think, if for some reason you're listening to this, one, you just had the best part of Jak 3 spoiled, what's wrong with you?
You fool!
You fool! You should have turned it off. Go and play them anyways. They're still really fun. They're on They're on every PlayStation generation you can get them on.
Listen, we didn't do that cutscene justice. You need to hear it for yourself.
Yeah, the line read is really... Who is Jak's voice? You know what? Hold on. Before we go anywhere, Jak 2, behind the voice actors. Who is Jak's voice actor? Because he does a really good job.
Yeah, and I don't think he's in much of anything else.
Mike Irwin. No, he's Speedy in Teen Titans.
Aaron Lore.
And Jak.
Aaron Lore in the Precursor Legacy, so the original trilogy.
That doesn't count.
Mike Irwin in Combat Racing.
That's it. He's Jak and Speedy. Those are his only 2 roles. He does a really good job. Really, it's bizarre.
That's really weird. He's really talented.
I know. It's my 2 favorite voice casting things about Jak 2, and this also transitions to Jak 3 as well, is 1, Sig is Phil Lamar, so that's Samurai Jack, if you didn't know. 2, Baron Praxis is Mr. Krabs, and you can super hear it. It's really, really easy to tell.
So Clancy Brown is usually really, really good at distinguishing between Mr. Krabs and every other voice he does, right?
Yes.
Like Lex Luthor, or the Red Death, or the Kurgan.
Clancy Brown is also the detective in fucking Detroit Become Human.
So like he does a great job of tricking you into thinking he's not Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabs.
But then like Baron Praxis starts talking and you can really, really hear it sometimes.
Extremely hear it. And
Jak, me boy! even as a kid, because back when I didn't really know, like, I couldn't really tell voice actors that well.
Sure.
I would hear Baron Praxton, I'm like, wait, who does that sound like? What is that? Is that Mr. Krabs?
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
It's my favorite. That's my favorite casting ever.
Oh, it's great. It's perfect.
Clancy Brown does such a good job as a villain in like everything he's in.
It's amazing. No, I love it. All the voice acting in like these PS2 platformers, the voice acting is really good.
I know, it's like this and Ratchet, I feel like could have gotten cartoons.
Oh, are you kidding? I am an adult woman, like a grown woman with a full-time job and a car payment and like a 401k. And if you told me that Jak and Daxter was getting a cartoon, I would be through the roof with joy. I wanted a Jak cartoon so badly, I can't stand it because it just feels like it was meant for it, you know?
Like, can you imagine, like, the DMC anime gets delayed again for the sake of a Jak and Daxter cartoon?
Oh no, not the goddamn monkey's paw again. You can only have one. I'm like...
Honestly, if I
would pick the Jak and Daxter one. Yeah.
I would pick Jak too. I would pick Jak and Daxter too, because that just lends itself more to a cartoon than Devil May Cry does.
Lends itself more to a cartoon. I got DMC 5. I really want Jak 4. So, all of that to say, I would actually take the Jak cartoon over a Devil May Cry cartoon. Yeah. Oh God! I did not expect us to talk for almost nearly for an hour and 40 minutes about the Jak series, but here we are.
Jak cartoon animated by Flying Leaf or Flying Bark.
Shut up! Shut up! It'd be so cool. Flying Bark is the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles people, if you don't know.
Yep.
That would be too cool. It would actually be too cool, and I would die. I would just explode.
God, I love these games. All three of them are such rock solid, and like we're talking about this. I'm still a bigger fan of the Ratchet and Clank series than I am Jak, like 100%. Right. But like, as far as just like core platforming goes, the Jak Trilogy is probably the best I've ever played.
Yeah, absolutely. It's extremely solid. Like I said, everything is very well constructed. There's a lot of love and care. It does feel just like three really well-paced Saturday morning adventure stories of going out and finding lost civilizations and digging up old treasures and finding a fucked up city and going out into the desert and driving dune buggies. And, you know, these are all cool, you know, childhood adventure fantasies just made perfect. And yeah, I think every aspect of these games is shockingly well put together and still holds up. I mean, more than 15 years later. Oof.
I'm still really upset that Jak never became like a franchise.
Yeah.
And didn't get action figures or merchandise of any kind.
Yeah, it's very strange that it never really... I mean, it sold extremely well. Like, by all accounts, by all metrics, all three games sold super, super well. They rated really well. They were popular. So there's really no reason. It's just... I mean, like, Crash became a big franchise. I guess in a way it's a good thing that they didn't really become a good franchise, because as soon as we did get it not being made by Naughty Dog, we got that bad PSP game that nobody played.
That's true. Yeah, Daxter didn't really...
No, not the Daxter game. I heard the Daxter game is actually really good. I've never played it.
The Lost Frontier.
The Lost Frontier is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Which is one that I have never played, but I kind of do want to, just because, like, it is more Jak.
To see what the damage is. I heard it's so bad, though.
Because it got the PSP release, and then it got a PS2 release, which was, like, a thing they did at the time.
Right, because nobody owned PSPs. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that happened to Ratchet too. Like, Ratchet and Clank Size Matters eventually got ported to the PS2.
Right.
Which is another game that was not actually made by Insomniac, but was made by another dev.
Well,
and is not good.
The Daxter game was not made by Naughty Dog, but it was made by a work for hire studio that is good, is the thing. Ready at Dawn, yeah. The Daxter game was oh my god, Daxter? The Ready at Dawn has done they did the port of Okami to the Wii. They did all of the God of War PSP games that people really like. They did the Order 1886.
Oh, that's why that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, they did something else, though, but it's not coming up on their Wikipedia page. I feel like they worked on something else. They make a lot of Oculus Rift games these days. But I feel like they made something else, or they helped work on something else that's just not on their Wikipedia their Wikipedia page. But yeah, no, by all accounts, the Daxter game is quite good, actually. The Lost Frontier is made by somebody else entirely.
Yeah. Who did? Who did? High Impact.
Who? Whomst?
High Impact Games does... I think they do a lot of ports to... Oh, they did Size Matters as well. They did the Ratchet and Clank Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank. They did some Call of Duty... They did Call of Duty Wii.
Oh.
And just some other stuff. They haven't done a game since 2012.
Oh, they might not exist anymore then.
They might.
Well, it's been 9 years. They almost certainly don't exist anymore.
Their Wikipedia tab says Fate Dormant.
Oh, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, they have not done much.
Well, oops. Hey, at least Ready at Dawn is still making games.
Yeah.
But someday I do want to play the Daxter game. I have a I have a Vita TV. I could ostensibly play it now that I think about it. Maybe someday. But for now, I didn't expect to talk for an hour and 45 minutes about the Jak and Daxter series, although thinking about it, I probably should have because I played those games so much when I was a kid.
And we could probably keep going.
Yeah.
There's so many little things I didn't even really talk about. I love how bouncy Jak is when he runs.
Yeah, he has a great run animation. He's not too slow, but you're still, you're still rolling everywhere.
Yeah, you still want to do the roll until you get the jet board or you get in a car, and then you don't have to worry about that.
The jet board is so good too. It's the best way to get around town in Haven City. But yeah, no, Jak has a great bouncy animation, and all of his attack animations are so good.
We didn't talk about the one thing that didn't carry over from Jak and Daxter to Jak 2 and 3, which is Daxter's death quotes.
I know. What a shame. What a shame.
Those were so funny.
They are so funny, and it's obviously because of the tone shift, clearly, but all of them in the first game are really good. So, you know, for the most part, we got all of the charm. But I guess it kind of makes sense because, in Jak 1, Daxter is more obviously, the annoying mascot / sidekick character, right? Mm-hmm. And he kind of sucks. And then, in, 2 and 3, they're actually, because, Jak can, talk now. It's oh no, they're actually friends. This is not, his weird, annoying pet.
Yeah.
This is, his best friend, right?
Yeah, they actually do like each other. It's not, the thing where, the protagonist has a best friend that's, in quotes, best friend.
Right.
And you wonder, why do they even hang out? Because he's very clearly, the most annoying person ever.
He's, the most annoying character in the universe. No, in Jak 2, it actually becomes extremely obvious that they're both idiots, and they like each other because they're both idiots. So the death quotes might have been a little gauche in that case. Mm-hmm. But they are extremely funny in Jak 1, I will say.
They are.
So. Oh my god. All right, we have to wrap it up. It's been 2 hours.
Yeah, thanks. So thanks to Visitor for use of background music. You can follow me on Twitter at thegorgepodcast. You can follow Sara at radioinactivity. You can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. And again, patreon.com/thegorge to get some cool stuff. Takeout, and that's hell you're walking into. We will have a new takeout soon. Mm-hmm. One that I'm very excited to subject Sara to.
Terrified.
It is. So the way we're doing it now, if you haven't listened recently, is that we are alternating by month now, where the other person will not know what the first person has picked until they hit play.
Yes.
So now we have a fun opportunity to either poison both of us or one person.
You loved X-Arm. Shut up.
It was great. It was great, but it was still poison.
It was poison. You do now have to live forever with that anime girl's soulless eyes staring into you while you sleep. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's That's How You're Walking Into, which is getting a little more interesting because I know that I'm playing FGO.
You can ask me even more in-depth questions.
I have a lot more in-depth questions to ask about it.
Yes.
And again, if we get up to $200 a month, we will pick back up with The Bad Game. Mm-hmm. If you have not watched us play through Air Guys, that was a ton of fun, and we are very much looking forward to playing other bad games. So yeah, get us to that so we can play some more garbage.
I think we said we're gonna play the Bouncer next time.
Yes, the Bouncer was gonna be our next The Bad Game. If you want us to play the Bouncer, which, if we do it right, I think that game's only like 3 hours long. We could probably just do a single stream of it.
Yes. Okay.
Get us to $200 a month, and we can play the Bouncer for you guys. And if you want to listen to Sara some more, talk about some other cool games that she's playing, you can listen to her other podcast.
Hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and a bunch of cool queer friends get together and we play tabletop games. We try out a lot of different systems. It's always a lot of fun. We've all known each other for like 4 years now, so there's a lot of back and forth. Right now we are playing Masks, A New Generation. It's a Powered by the Apocalypse game about being young superheroes trying to navigate their way in the world. If you think that sounds like fun, we are at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there. Thanks!
Alright, that'll do it for us. Which one do you want? Which one do you got this time?
My god, there's so many options. There's so many options. Ben. What do I say? There's too many. The last boss fight of Jak 3, Errol, like Robo Errol, could have been cool.
I was about to say, just fuck Errol in general.
Just in general, like, you know, what a prick. And then he's a huge annoying asshole in Jak 3, and all of his boss fights suck.
He was not the character I wanted to come back. Like,
he was not the character, or if he was gonna come back, I wanted him to be more blatantly a rival character. You know?
Yeah. He sucks so much in Jak 2, and like one of the reasons like the thing doesn't quite work is that you kind of agree with Jak when he storms off, because it's like, why the fuck are you giving Errol the time of day, Kira?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think that's maybe why Amy Hennig wrote Jak and Ashlyn hooking up at the end of 3, is because Kira was actively flirting with the Jak equivalent of the Gestapo. You know?
She was flirting with as close to an alt-right guy you can get in Jak.
Christoph Waltz's character in Inglourious Bastards, you know what I mean?
She was flirting with Jak's Virgil, but his reboot Virgil.
No, what have you done? You're right, though. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Errol is Reboot Virgil.
He has the exact same energy as Reboot Virgil, where it's like, you should be like a cool rival character, but you just kind of suck instead. And then he comes back in 3, and like, Robo Errol is a cool design. I will give them that. But like, he's so underutilized. Like, he just kind of shows up out of nowhere and does nothing, and then is a really bad final boss fight and dies. And it's like, where were you guys going with this? Did you just kind of like, did you just lose your way?
My favorite thing, and this is just a sign that, like, by the end of the game, like, they didn't really know what they were doing. Alongside with Jack and Ashlyn just hooking up out of nowhere, is the fact that they spell Errol's name wrong in Jak 3.
Yes! Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you noticed that, too. His name, for the record, 2 R's.
Yeah.
It's 2 R's in Jak 2, and they misspelled it in Jak 3.
One of the R's just vanishes.
It just, maybe, I don't know, you would think it would be the other way around, because he's like Robot Errol now, so you gotta stick that extra R in there to like be like, it's Robot. They don't do that. No. And it's just, I will say, I think Jak 2 probably has better writing, because it's more cohesive, for sure. They definitely were like, we're gonna bring back Errol. Why? Because he's like the rival character. Is he though?
We ran out of villains. We killed all the other ones off. Which one can we bring back? Well, we don't really want to bring back Praxis or Crew. I guess we can bring back Errol.
Just turn the bad councilman into like a weird fucked up robot or something. I don't know. He's been in. Jak deserves to punch him in the face. I mean, he did kind of murder his dad. Yeah. I mean, you know.
I do like the implication that because Cleaver is in Jak X and Viger is not, the implication is that Cleaver actually made good on his promise and did eat Viger.
That is true. Good. Oh my god. Good night, everyone.
All right, good night, everyone.